welcome back to the latest episode of the Master of None podcast. I am your host, as always, Stephen Murphy, joined by the regular rugby crew of Sam Westy, joined a beautiful sunny Galway, boys. It's unheard of these days, but the sun is out.
That 1 week of summer we get.
This is it, and golf courses are closed, so me and Sam are pissed. But it's great to have a bit of good weather, boys. I think improves everyone's mood. I know it doesn't mine. I don't know about you two lads, but anyway, Sam, how are you?
Yeah, much better. Back in work now. This is my second week back, and some of the other kids were back in, so it was kind of nice atmosphere in work, which was great. So kind of happy to be able to leave the house every morning and come back in the afternoon. It structures your day a lot better, I find.
Can't believe I'm so jealous of someone who gets to leave their own house.
Yeah, I got to drive on a motorway today.
Oh my God, what's a car? I don't even know what that is anymore. Westy, how are you, bud?
Oh yeah, I'm good. Same old. I'm not like Sam, who has 3 months of work off to complain about. I've been working all the time, so you know.
Bazinga. How'd you like that one, Sam?
That was harsh. That was uncalled for. Not true, I'll have you know.
In which part isn't true? The 3 months off?
I've been working non-stop since the whole time.
Sam hasn't been working at all. But yeah, Sam's a teacher, so we like to give him abuse because, yeah, I think it's more jealousy than anything. I'm not jealous of your job. I'm jealous of your time off, and there's a difference. I don't want to work with kids. Kids are really annoying, but I'm just jealous of your time off. So my girlfriend's always happy to hear that how much I dislike children for future plans. It's great. But we're not here to talk about my future plans. We're here to talk about some rugby, boys. Six Nations was on the weekend. We also had Pro14 and Super Rugby. This is going to be a jam-packed episode. We're going to try and keep it as short as possible, which is very difficult for us because we like to talk about rugby. But we'll start Six Nations. We'll start the Irish game, Ireland in Rome. This was always going to be, it was described a lot of times as a lose-lose because, it's Italy. But then if you don't play well, it's also, looked down upon. So Westy, it was a comfortable win in the end. We never looked like we were struggling. The result was never in doubt. Italy were quite poor. How do you look at this? Do you look at it as it was, got in there, did the job as that we needed to do, or we're still way off the pace?
Yeah, look, I think as we kind of said before, like this was just about winning it. Like it was just about getting through the fixture. Like Italy, there was a very, very slim chance it would come together for Italy and we'd be the ones to fall to them. There's been a lot of talk that they are playing a decent attacking style of rugby, although the defence has been questioned quite a lot, and rightly so. But I think it's how we follow through now. It was about winning this game either way. And now we've seen a glimpse of what Ireland can do. We saw it in patches. I don't think it was a consistent enough performance, to be honest. Like they went down to 13 men. I don't think we scored. We still struggled to find space. We did still struggle to keep our attacking flow together. But we saw long periods where Ireland did do it. I think that is a promising sign. Even the games we lost, we didn't lose them by a lot. They were both 1 or 2 point losses in the end. So bounce of a ball could have gone a different way. But it's just a bit comforting to have that first win on the board.
Could I interest anyone in an offload?
Ooh.
Everyone got offloads this weekend, boys. I felt like the meme.
You
get an offload. You get an offload.
New entry into the Guinness World Records for most times offload has been said in an 80-minute period.
It was.
The commentators and Virgin Media, I understand that we weren't doing it very often before that, and that we happened to have a few, but the first one was such a bog standard offload, and the commentators were like, oh, look at the effectiveness, and they went into such detail about it, and they were over the moon about it. And it was I think more was made of offloads than any other aspect of the game. You could make such a deal out of so many different aspects of the game. I think I read a stat earlier that Wales are winning the Six Nations and they have the least in the tournament. So it's not the be all and end all of winning this Six Nations.
But Wales are an anomaly. We'll get to that later on. But again, we'll talk about that later. But Sam, we did see a lot more attacking, I think, free play, a bit more creativity. Is that just because we were playing Italy, or is this now the Ireland we can expect going forward?
Yeah, that's the downside to playing Italy this weekend, is that we're going into it with the caveat that you're just playing Italy. So the reins can kind of be a little loosened. And that was the case. We saw a much freer version of Ireland. Maybe it's the version they've been trying to get to and just hasn't succeeded because they had no confidence the last couple of weeks. But, it definitely did look like a much improved mentality, a much improved kind of game plan, much more confidence in backing ability, taking people on the outside. James Lowe in particular, you know, he really ran the touchline a few times and tried a couple of things that didn't quite come off, but it was positive to see. And you hope that that is a precursor to the future, and that we see that going into Scotland, and then England on the last day. But it's, you know, it's too hard to kind of get overly excited about it, because like that, it is Italy. And in the past, we've had Six Nations where we've been our usual kind of self under Joe Schmidt, where we've destroyed everyone, played really well, but in a certain way. And then the Italy game has been like this, a good result, but also a completely different style. So, you know, whatever style you take out, you play in the Italy game is not necessarily the long-term goal. Hopefully, because I was impressed with it. What I was impressed more so than the offloads was the manner in which the forwards were attacking the line at pace around the corner in pods. It's been too static the last couple of weeks. Forwards have been taking it standing still and then running. They've been taking it on their own out wide. It's not really been cohesive. And I was really impressed with that. And that is something you can bring into future games. That is something that you can bring into the next couple of games, because regardless of how quick your defensive line is coming up at you and stopping a back line from playing, forwards will always be able to get that momentum if they keep going. They keep going. Maybe the first time they stopped on the line, but 2 or 3 in and a retreating forward pack aren't going to be able to stop. So hopefully we see that, and maybe Kilcoyne and Kelleher and Furlong are the type of like front row that can facilitate that. And that's no slight on the other front rows that have played this season. I think Porter has been absolutely unbelievable. But you know, those 3 players, when you think of them, what you think of is their pace and their power and their ability.
But this is the thing, and as you pointed out, it's the problem with playing Italy is like there's some good performances, but is that because we were playing Italy? This is the lose-lose nature of it.
I think if you're looking towards the future, you know, it would be very telling on what type of game we play against Scotland, because like that could be a one-off, and that's so sad to think that if that style of play is available to you, why haven't you accessed it? Why don't you try it more often? But I do think that Kilcoyne, Kelleher and Furlong, you know, Ryan, Henderson, Connors, Stander, I think that they're all capable against any backline, against any forward pack, of playing quite quickly around the corner the way they did. They just haven't been doing it yet. I don't think whoever you're playing, I don't think that game plan is nullified by, like, outside of really being smashed. I don't think it's nullified. I think that they've just not been doing it. I think that we've been setting up ridiculously statically in the last few weeks, and we weren't doing that this week. We were really taking it at pace. I thought Gibson Park facilitated that well, and I thought that Casey did it well when he came on as well. So, you know, hopefully you see it going into it. But the biggest question will be, if it's not the same or if it's not similar versus Scotland, why do it against Italy?
Well, yeah, that's going to be the big issue. And Westy, I think personally, I thought that we played pretty well. It was still not very clinical in some areas. I think, though, it's amazing the difference that, as Sam said, coming onto the ball with pace and going into a tackle with pace, the momentum it causes, it frees up that potential offload, just because, you know, the defender bounces off you rather than just smothers you. And I think, though, a lot of criticism come in on the Italy side saying that defensively they were really poor. Where do you fall on that? Do you think Ireland were just better, you know, going forward, or were Italy as bad as everyone's saying they are?
It's an easy answer. It's probably a mix of both. I think on the point of having a more free-flowing game plan against Italy, we probably had the confidence to have a more free-flowing game plan against Italy. It's kind of a, you know, it's because we think it's an easier win, it becomes an easier win. You know, we kind of manifest it or whatever, because we're that bit more willing to take a chance because we're not as afraid of Italy. Whereas you can kind of see how playing Wales or France, we'd want to be a bit more conservative and take our points where we can. I don't think on the whole Italy's defense were poor. I just think they seem to defend well for 1 or 2 phases, and then they'll have one phase where someone's just caught napping, and then they struggle to get back into the form. Like, we saw how well they defended with 13, 14 men for, you know, they had 14 men for 15 minutes in total, and we only scored once in that time. And so you know they have the ability to do it. I think I pointed out during the game, you can see Garabisi marshalling people around corners and yelling at people to get into space. So it's not a case of them not. I don't think it's a case of their defensive system necessarily being bad. It's a case of buy-in. I think it's a commitment to doing it for 80 minutes.
And we've always said this now about Italy teams, that they have the potential, but they haven't. There's always a lapse in concentration. Like, why? It's obviously incredibly frustrating for Franco Smith, but why do Italy teams do this?
It's tough. I mean, you would say maybe, they don't have as many players in, let's say, as much of a professional environment as, let's say, like the Irish or the French or stuff. You've heard kind of people who've gone to Treviso and Zebre do say that there is a little bit more, or historically rather, I don't want to say it now, but there has been a bit more of a laid back attitude towards kind of times of trainings and stuff like that. So maybe it's just not being in such a harshly regimented environment. Although I'm not saying that's the case for the national team. And I think maybe just like winning is a habit, losing is a habit. If you're going out for your 7th Six Nations in a row without winning a game, like it is harder for those older lads to be like, oh geez, here we go again. Whereas I think the beauty of Italy now is it's a very, very young team, an under-20s team who have beaten, correct me if I'm wrong, everybody except New Zealand. So it's a similar vein to France, except obviously France are a little, that bit better. Whereas they're bringing in these young players who don't have that losing habit. And I think the sooner they get their first victory, the better. Because I'm been a little bit too optimistic for Italy here, but I do see the potential there for something really good.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think the potential is obviously there. We all seen what they can do. It's just piecing those pieces together, which they've struggled with for the last God knows how long. Losing Stephen Varney before the game started was also a massive loss. I know he's only 19 or whatever he is, but he was brilliant the first 2 weeks. So a big loss for them, but I don't think it would have made a difference. Sam, defensively, I think we played pretty well.
From an Irish point of view, from
Irish point of view.
Yeah, I don't think we were overly tested. I don't think Italy were the same Italy they'd been in the previous 2 games. That one that really caused quite a bit of a stir and got in and scared defenses. Part of that might be, from what Westy was saying, the losing as a habit. Like, having 2 games where you play probably the best rugby you've ever played and are still hockeyed, it could be demoralizing. It could stop you wanting to try. It could kind of put a dampener on that. And they might have just kind of gone, like, it mightn't have been for them as easy to kind of harness that ability and to do that against the Irish defence, which was quite well drilled. And I think that, we've not looked overly great the last year or two, but one thing that we will, like, our head coach is an extremely successful defence coach, with the Lions, with Ireland in the past. So I do think that defensively, drilled wise, it should be something that we are very good at. The last couple of games, the last couple of years, we've seen an outside winger be pretty much the downfall for the defensive systems. Defensive systems have worked until a winger is shot up. So maybe something was fixed in that regard. But yeah, no, I think that there was definitely very, very good defensive structure. There was definitely very good aggression. Having Tygburn, Ian Henderson, and James Ryan on the pitch at the same time is always going to be helpful, because you've got 3 lads that really, and CJ Stander as well, like 3 lads that really, really want to get in and get on that ball and slow it down. And then Will Connors, just like, the man is just a scythe. He cuts you from the bottom down. Like, so yeah, no, I was very impressed with it. But that being caveated, I don't think Italy were actually up to much. I don't even think they were as good as themselves the previous 2 games. They didn't really ask too many questions.
Yeah, I think Italy definitely played better the first 2 weeks than they did against Ireland, and that could be because of Ireland or just having a bad day. Will Connors, you touched on him. I think he was absolutely brilliant. I thought he was man of the match, possibly over Tygburn.
I thought Tygburns little in his speech after he got man of the match, saying he said he went up to Will Connors and said, "I think they mistook me for you." I think that was fair, because I thought Will Connors was probably better.
Well, he scored 2 tries. I don't know how much more you have to do in a game as a back rower, but we'll touch on it just secondly. I think I'd have him starting as a number 7 for Ireland. I don't know about you guys.
Will Connors?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would. I'd start him. I said this a couple of weeks ago as well. I think that we have such a wealth of back rows. Although I was listening to another podcast recently that made mention of every nation having a wealth of back rows, and it's true. They're very in vogue at the moment. There's a lot of really good back rows.
Wasn't it last Six Nations, every man in the match was from the back row?
Yeah,
it was something ridiculous.
Watch like Super Rugby Aotearoa at the weekend, like just how many back rows are in each of those teams. Like, I think that we might have a wealth of it, but so do England, so do France.
Yeah.
Italy, that's probably their strongest positions as well. Like, so it is. No, I'd have Will Connors starting at the moment, definitely. I thought CJ was good again. I think he's very, very good at being CJ. He's very good at all the things we know he can do and will do. I'm not sure how effective that is in the long run. Like, if you get a Doris back, do you replace CJ with Doris? I probably would personally, but that's not any slight on CJ. He's a brilliant player. I think he's very much just the player that we know he is, whereas Doris, I think, is a little bit more and has potential to grow into being a little bit more.
Yeah, Doris is more dynamic, I think, potentially. Westy, you want to say something?
I was just going to say on the Tyg Byrne point, if you want to know why he got man of the match, he was the first man at our rucks 27 times. He was the first man at opposition rucks 10 times. Within the first 3 to a ruck 27 times. Clear outs 12. Like the work rate from Tyg Byrne was unbelievable.
And that's not even his best position, which is the scary thing. That's how good Tyg Byrne is. Westy, we went into this game and we all said we need to use this game wisely to learn as much as we can, because we all knew that we should beat Italy. After this game, do you think we used this game as well as we could?
No, I don't. I think we used it well. Like it was a decent kind of it was a good overall team. Craig Casey that's a brilliant debut for him. He got what did he get, 20 minutes? Ryan Bird made a big impact coming on to this game. Kind of a reintroduction to starting for Tyg Furlong, although I think he's hurt his ankle now. But no, I don't. I mean, I think when you have and look, Johnny Sexton had a fantastic game. It's great to see him go 80 minutes, but it's not a game he really needed to go 80 minutes for. Like we had an opportunity there. A lot of people, like I've been very flattering to Italy on this podcast, but it's because we had the game pretty much in the palm of our hand for the majority of it, especially when they were down men. Like, why are you not emptying the bench at that stage? Why are you not giving Billy Burns, who, by the looks of it, Andy Farrell is sticking with Billy Burns, which is fine. I think he's a grand player. Why not give him more time? Why not give Craig Casey more time? I think you could see that we were held back a little bit by fear still in this game.
Do you think, Westy, you say sticking with Billy Burns? I was only thinking about this the other day because of how little game time Billy Burns got and how weirdly unfair it was that Sexton was also on the pitch with him, which I think really hampers his ability to run the back line the way he should be allowed to try. But do you think that maybe Andy Farrell is sticking with Billy Burns because he's disposable in the interim? You have Billy Burns for a year or two and then cast him aside when Joey Carberry is fit and ready, or Harry Byrne is ready and proven. Is it probably easier to just go with him for the year or two? It seems that could be the case. Like, I don't want to be overly critical of Andy Farrell, but it just looked weird that he didn't bring him on when he brought on Casey, when there was such an opportunity to do it, when we were quite clearly going to win and quite clearly in control.
Well, I think he probably thought that benefit-wise for Casey probably gets a bit more benefit playing inside Johnny Sexton rather. Maybe you're right. Like, maybe right in the sense, like, not every player who plays or starts for Ireland has to be a 100 capper. Sometimes players play for a couple of years and they move on, or it doesn't work out for them. That's fine. But either way, he's still choosing to go with Billy Burns over Ross Byrne or anybody else. And on the conservative thing, we had a lot of experience coming in off that bench as well. We had Rob Herring coming in at hooker. Again, I lament the chance for Dave Heffernan to get a run at that he thoroughly deserves. He's been in how many camps now? He's got been in how many squads now? He's got 20 minutes maybe in the last 2 tournaments. I just think it's a little bit it's a bit strange, but I see the logic in it that, I think we were hampered by fear and kind of giving these guys more time. But
where's the fear coming from, Westy?
Because he lost the first 2 games in a row. We've never done that before.
This game was over at halftime.
Oh yeah, well, I can't explain that. I think the Johnny Sexton decision is around the development of Casey and giving Casey time inside Johnny Sexton. That is, if you I can see how that might be better for Casey to develop. I think that it's probably, I can see how it would be beneficial to give Casey time playing with Sexton. Now again, why didn't you bring him on 10 minutes earlier? When did we get the 4th try? I think we got it pretty early on.
4th try was before halftime. We had 4 before halftime.
We had 3 before halftime.
No, we had bonus points. We not before halftime.
I don't know. I'd have to check. I don't think so.
Even if we had 3.
Yeah, but again, we were comfortable. And then when they start getting cards, obviously. But even if to Sam's point, Billy Burns is like a stopgap until a better 10 comes along, why not give him a bit more time on the pitch?
It just seemed like a win-win. You know what I mean? The game was over. We were bonus point. Italy never looked like, breaking us down. They never looked like they were going to score the 4 tries required to get back into a game. It just seemed like it was the ideal situation to, get Billy Burns on with half an hour to go, get Casey on with half an hour to go, Baird, whoever, the entire bench if you wanted it. Why? it sticks in the fans' minds as like, this is just again not using our game time. People always say it's very hard to develop players during the Six Nations. Well, a second half against Italy where the game's out of sight already is probably your only and your best opportunity. And
but it probably says a lot about. Go on, sorry, Sam.
So I was just going to say, I don't like the argument that it's hard to develop a player during the Six Nations, because yes, that is true, but I also find it very bemusing that a country could use the excuse of it hard to being developing a player in the Six Nations, but using the Six Nations to get players back to fitness, like James Lowe and Tyg Furlong, and to an extent Jordan Larmour, who are like, they've not been involved provincially for quite a while, and I don't understand why they're in there if you can't bring in someone like Casey. Surely when players are lacking fitness, it's the opportunity to bring someone else in, and that then gives you twice as many players with experience at the end of it all. That for me is where that doesn't really compute. I don't understand the logic behind that.
And it shows it's a very different, you can see a very different, sorry Steve, I keep going across you. You see a very different coaching philosophy in Andy Farrell to Wayne Pivac. Now again, like Wayne Pivac at this stage, I think it's kind of like, let's just see what happens. We're going to win somehow. But 2 games in a row now, he's brought on Callum Sheedy pretty much at the stroke of halftime. And dear God, Callum Sheedy, what an introduction to international rugby.
Yeah, but it's the willingness to try those things that, in Ireland, we just don't seem to have that.
But I say Andy Farrell was more willing 6 months ago, but things have changed.
It does. The Callum Sheedy thing is funny though, because like earlier on, Westy, you made mention of it about us with the bounce of a ball. We were within 2 or 3 points of both games, the first 2 games. Wales are kind of the opposite side, where they're the bounce of a ball, their direction. They've gotten two calls that like they were definite reds, but they were unfortunate for the players getting red. They were one-off like ridiculous moments. 2 seconds later, and Peter O'Mahony hits his own man and he doesn't get a red card. Or the Scotland one, I believe it was a red, but on a different day, a TMO might have said mitigation and given a yellow. And then like the other day against England, the ref has actually already come out and said that he made the mistake twice for 2 of the tries. So they're getting the luxury of bringing on Sheedy because the bounce of the ball is going their way a little bit. And you probably make your own luck. They're very confident in themselves. The Welsh nation have always been confident. They've been written off so many years. They've ended up winning Grand Slams. Like we go, Wales are terrible. We have like 3 Grand Slams. What do they have? 12 or 13. It's crazy the difference between us. Like, because we are consistently better provincially and consistently better like from a rugby point of view. And then it gets to Six Nations time. Wales are always looking a bit shaky, and then manage to get like win the championship or win the Grand Slam.
But this is what I was saying, and this is when I argue with people about changing how Ireland play and their whole style, is that we could still do what we're doing. Like this team that Ireland have now could win a Six Nations, like Wales are proving. You just get the odd break, and you make the best out of it, and you can win games. So that's just how it goes. That's how tight the Six Nations is. But to get to that next level, which we all want Ireland to get to, we're not going to be able to do that this way. But we've talked enough already in the Irish game. We'll move on to that Wales-England game that you were talking about. Obviously, referee Pascal Gazaire has come under a lot of fire, and probably rightly so. As Sam said, he's already come out and admitted that 2 incidents, the crossfield kick and the knock-on, were incorrect decisions. And in fairness, credit to Andy Farrell and Eddie Jones, which is not something I often say, but they had plenty of opportunity to slay them after the game and they didn't take it. So fair play to them for that. But Westy, how annoyed would you be if you were an English fan this weekend?
I think you'd kind of understand how Scotland and Ireland have been feeling the last few weeks, fallen victim to the Welsh black magic. Yeah, no, look, you'd be pretty disappointed. I think it's always such a shame when like big games, especially Six Nations games, are kind of defined by referee decisions. Like I hate when someone can turn around and say that, the ref cost us that. Like, because 9 times out of 10, like ref decisions go both ways. Like you get decisions, you lose decisions. Like that's the unfortunate nature of the game. But yeah, like the first one I think is arguable. I think the ref doesn't do anything illegal. He's not wrong. But how he doesn't call for the water to go off before he puts time back on, or how he blows the whistle while England clearly aren't paying attention, like it's just poor game management more than anything else, I think, in that instance.
But he tells Farrell to talk to his team.
Yeah, but it's like 20 seconds later. Like it's longer than you think if you watch it back.
The water is on, which is
that's what I'm saying. Like,
but is the water on? So is that who decides the water to come on? Is that England or the referee?
as far as I'm aware, Farrell has asked, is the water all right to come on? The water comes on for both teams. It's there. So let's just say if the ref does the exact same thing that he does, but instead of there being a crossfield kick, there's a quick tap and go. That Welsh player is running at a water boy, and straight away the ref would blow his whistle and say, "No, you cannot play if the water boy is there." That would be so dangerous, because that's where he is. He's standing in the middle of the huddle, but it's the fact that it's away from it. The ref kind of waves it on, which I think Farrell could feel extremely aggrieved on it, and I thought he did. He composed himself, so did Eddie Jones in the interviews afterwards. And I think that there needs to be a discussion with the media about pushing for comments about referees, because players get punished for commenting on referees, and media are pushing for it. So if the media are essentially responsible for making a player say something about the referee because they're in the heat of battle asking them about it, I think that they are deserving of some sort of punishment too.
Yeah, I just want to say though on that the abuse that interviewer got is ridiculous. How people could treat someone like that.
And tagging the profile is just like
awful.
But this is the thing. This is the bullshit. And Sam, you said it before, like this rugby culture that everyone praises and how great it is that Alan Wynne-Jones is carrying, the stand off the pitch. The same culture is also these people, targeting Sonia McLaughlin and giving abuse to her. Like it's the same supporters that do this sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think that's more indicative of social media culture, though. I don't think that's necessarily a sporting culture. I don't think any sport has that culture.
They're rugby fans. They're not. These are not soccer fans coming over like we always say.
Oh yeah,
like
but I'm saying it's people. Like those people are commenting vile comments on anything.
Majority of them. That's true. But we'll not draw on that. Obviously, if you're doing that, fuck off and do not follow this podcast. As I said, credit to Farrell and Jones. Sam, are Wales just destined to win this fucking Six Nations? Because that's what it seems like.
Yeah, it seems to be the case. Like I said before, Wales have won plenty of Grand Slams and Six Nations where they've been completely written off beforehand. I remember discussions 2 years ago where people were like, I think Wales will probably finish behind Scotland, and then they went and won the Grand Slam. Like, so it does happen. Like they're extremely successful. They're extremely confident in themselves. Like, I think that we've questioned George North at centre, and we've said George North has passed it, even though he's only 28 with his 100 caps the other day, a couple of times for a few years now. But I don't think Wales are saying that. I don't think his teammates are thinking that, and I think that that's where they get their belief from. I think that they're looking around and they're looking at winners. They're looking at serial winners, players that have been consistently winning this tournament and consistently better. And until France recently, probably the most successful team, maybe England, like in the last few years. So I think that might be the case, and I think that they're persisting with something. Maybe last year was explained to them all. They were sat down and maybe they were told, nothing good is going to happen for a year, but next year, and that might be something they've all bought into, like the likes of Faletau and Tipperick and Navidi. They're all playing good rugby, so they could easily go on and win it, and it would be embarrassing for me, who I wrote them off before the tournament. I was having them finishing just above Italy.
Well, I think a lot of people were, in fairness. But this is what we've always said. Wales, you can argue whether it was planned or not, but people always say you can't sacrifice a year to be better the next year. And Wales
absolutely can.
I mean, you can though. Yeah, no, definitely.
But the people are saying that about Ireland. You can't sacrifice. You can't finish fifth and then the finances and all that shit. Wales, whether they really planned it or not, or where it is just pure luck, is what they're doing now. Like last year was crap; they were awful. But now they've won 3 from 3. They've got Italy and France left, and France. Who knows what story France is?
Walking wounded is going to show up for that France.
And if they get people are calling for Scotland to get the 28-0 win. That won't happen because of TV money. But if that did happen, their Grand Slam's gone, and then Wales just have to, either beat or lose by a certain number. Like, they could go from finishing 5th to winning a Six Nations because they took time to implement a system that Wayne Pivac wanted. Like, this is where the short-sightedness is backfiring.
But it's funny, like you say that, with the game at the weekend, what was kind of like, the Wales tries were a bit ridiculous. England didn't deserve to win it. Like, even with those tries, like England like Farrell said himself, like they didn't control the controllables. But what it did do when England were behind was force England to play a much nicer looking game than they played at all this tournament. I was actually really, really impressed with some of the ways in which England were playing. And when they're under the cosh like that, it allowed them to get a bit more expansive, and it made for a much better spectacular game than we've seen from England for a good while. So
they were. Attackingly, they looked in phases really good and back to their best. But Westy, we've seen discipline has become an issue for England. On average now, the penalty count has gone up by 6 penalties a game compared to 2 years ago. And one of the person that gets a lot of flack for that is obviously Maro Itoje, who has been, one of the best players in the world the last few years, but now has been underperforming for quite a while now and getting a lot of slack for it. What do you think? I jokingly tweeted out, I was sort of joking, half joking, but I was saying that he's playing the same as he was 2 years ago. It's just he's getting called for all his bullshit now. And people sort of thought I was being serious, but I wasn't really. I know he's much better than that. But what are you putting down to this lack of form? Is it the Saracens thing, or is he just going through a bad phase?
I'd say it's a lot. I think to me it's a Saracens thing. I think you're going to go through a bad phase when you're not playing rugby at a high level for a year. Like, I don't care how big your hit-ups are, your training sessions are, your hit-ups. You're not playing week in, week out competitive rugby. It's extremely difficult to go into that situation. And the thing is, for me with Maro Itoje, it's not like he's playing bad. Like, he's not missing tackles. He's not falling off. He's not been barreled over. I don't know, is he dropping balls? Maybe he is. I don't think so. But that he's getting pinged for stuff that normally he'd just be a little bit smarter at doing, because maybe it's the sharpness of the match situations. You're doing hit-ups to training. Who's reffing that? One of the coaches. Like, you're not used to the way refs are reffing the game this year. And you're right, it's a little bit of, the rules have changed. They've gotten a little bit stricter around the offside. We're seeing people getting called for not retreating after the kick. That law came in 5 years ago. Nobody's ever been pinged for it. So I think it's a combination of he's just not sharp enough. I don't want to say mentally, but like strategically on these areas that he normally would either toe the line very finely or push it even a little bit. And he's getting pinged for it.
Sam, what do you think? Is he just being pinged for these now?
No, I think it's 100% mental sharpness. I think it's game fitness. Game fitness isn't just about your ability to keep running, keep going for 80 minutes. It's about your ability to concentrate for those 80 minutes and stay sharp. Like, we've played nothing near the same standard, but when you come back from your holidays after Christmas and you've got your extra kg of turkey in your belly, you're not as good and you're not as sharp, and you drop balls not through like a lack of being able to catch, but through a lack of being able to concentrate. You're thinking about too many things, and that is where it comes from. I think England have looked sluggish in not just the way they're playing with the ball, but also the way they're playing in their minds. They haven't looked like they're sharp at all, and that's all coming through Maro Itoje. It doesn't help that he's quite obviously like the biggest person on the pitch, and he's very obvious. So when you're breaking rules and you're that obvious and you're in and around the breakdown where the ref is looking at you, it's harder to get away with it. I'd say if you are an outside back or a winger or full back or whatever, and you're standing slightly offside, you could do that 100 times and get pinged once. Maro Itoje, plays the ball on the ground twice, he gets pinged once. Like that's the unfortunate side of rucking, and you have to be so sharp, and that's what the big part of his game. So I think that's it. All boils down to not playing regularly enough. I think that I don't understand how players who aren't playing regularly for their clubs can be picked on form for an international team. Every fan wants the team to be picked on form, and a player that's not playing isn't on form. That's just, there's no argument there.
Well, the best part is, they'll be in top form in 2 games time when they play us.
Oh yeah, they'll be match sharp then.
Itoje will be man of the match and just slaughter us as he always does. But we'll move on then. We also had some Pro 14 action, lads. Connacht played Benetton in Italy, beautiful sunny Italy. What a game. What a game. One for the neutrals. No, it wasn't. It was quite a poor game to watch, but Benetton, they've had 2 games now, the Munster game included, where they've had victory just snatched from them in the last seconds of the game, and finally Connacht come out in this game. And lads, you've supported Connacht obviously for years now. This is not a game Connacht win too often. Westy, is that fair to say?
Yeah, the nature of this game isn't one we win too often. Like I think I can count the times on one hand we've won a game at the death. I've lost kind of times we've lost a game at the death, and that's there's a great, I think Jerry Torney years and years ago in the Irish Times once had a quote that said Connacht amazingly snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, and I always remember it because it's like it was so apt to how things used to be. I think we did a lot good. Like you watch it back, like Bundy has a lot of really good turnovers. All right, he's a little bit off the pace in other areas. Our wingers play quite smartly. Connor Fitz does grow into the game as it goes on. Kieran Myman, like looking back, he was actually outstanding. Like, and one of our biggest problems was that we couldn't keep up with him.
Literally.
Well,
Yeah, literally.
the tap and go, it could be the best decision ever, but if no one's coming with you, it looks bad all the time. It looks terrible.
But no, like they frustrated us, and they in areas they played very well. If they were a better attacking side, they win that game 9 times out of 10.
There was plenty of space out wide, wasn't there, Sam?
For
Benetton.
For Benetton to get at,
Yeah.
which is funny because the first 10 minutes I thought Sullivan did really well defending out wide. He showed his man kind of just outside and made a really good low tackle, and Wooten did very similar and cut off that game. But just as the game wore on, it opened and opened and opened, and they got at us and were able to get at us and didn't punish us. Thank God they have 12 people off with international duty, because if they had had any of their internationals, any of their finishers, I think that they would have really kind of pushed at it. What I thought would happen was I thought it would be a lively kind of showing from the Benetton starters, thinking that they would, this is their opportunity to seize their chance. And where I thought we would end up winning comprehensively was when they had to unload their bench of third string players to take over from the second string players. But that didn't happen. They didn't look like penetrating us. If it wasn't for the fact that they couldn't score, we would have been destroyed. But no, I think looking back on it, I like Westy criticized Bundy thinking he was a little bit off the pace, but actually I think he was doing a lot of things really, really well. He was turning over and then getting wrongfully pinged for it. I thought the ref was, this is becoming a weekly segment on this show with me criticizing refs. I think the Pro14 refs are so poor. I'm not even going to say that they're not even up to standard. I think they're poor. I think some of the decisions are just being made up as they go along. Scrum penalties just go whichever way the ref feels like it. Maul penalties are like, he's saying things that just weren't true. There was like Bundy was being pinged for being off his feet when he wasn't. There was loads of stuff like that. But getting back to the actual game, Fitzy was a little bit slow to start, grew into a little bit, but there's not much he can do when the team was under the cosh so badly. Like, I don't know what was decided, but not once did we see any of our extremely good and fast wingers and fullback run it back when we were being pinned back. We couldn't get out of our 22, and we didn't seem to try to do it any other way than booting it straight back at them. And it wasn't for the fact that we had a lot of self-belief, a good maul, and a try at the end there. We could be cursing this game, because like Wesley said, I've been at many Connacht games where we've not won. I've seen Connacht go to Italy a few times thinking, handy 5 points, and not get the 5 points or the 4 points. We've lost more times than you'd like to kind of admit. So it was frustrating to watch, but then again, champions resolve. You really like seeing a team that played absolutely kind of terribly by their own standards win in the end and get it. And I think that's a record now for away wins. We just keep going. We'll go to Thomond now this weekend, tails up a little bit, a few of the international players back, and they'll be very, very relieved at the result and the way that they managed to do it, and be quite probably buoyed by a last minute winner. You're muted there, Smurf.
Sorry, like I said, losing that game would have been really, really bad, obviously, because to not be obvious, but at least then it saves you. You can now lose probably another game and still hold on to that second place, hopefully, behind Munster. You mentioned Connor Fitz, and I want to kind of get your opinion on him, because I haven't seen as much of him, obviously, as you guys have, but I feel he does take a long time to come into games, whether it be nerves or whatever. When he gets going, and there's no doubting his talent, but Westy, if Jack Carty was to, nothing has been announced yet, if he was to move on, or God forbid he gets, an injury, are you comfortable? Are you feeling confident with Connor Fitz as your fly half?
What have you heard?
No,
Is this how you're breaking the news to me?
Yeah.
I am. Overall, I am. I think, we said the last 2 games with Connor Fitz that he kind of had a bit of a slow start in. I think it's down to game time this season. Like, he really hasn't played anywhere near the number of games, or well, maybe it is
a long injury for a while as well.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, he hasn't played anywhere near the number of minutes this season, let's say, rather than games that he played last season. When Jack was away at the World Cup, he had a fantastic run of form for Connacht. Even when Jack came back, Jack struggled to get his position back off. Now, there's other factors there as well, but I think me and Sam were remarking how good Connor Fitz was playing. So I do think he's a great player. I just think this year he's been unlucky with injuries. Okay, I would be nervous if we lost Jack, because we're losing, we're going from, a 28-year-old with, does he have 100 caps for Connacht to
150.
150 caps for Connacht, to a very young lad with not that much even, professional rugby experience. He's still only 21, 22. But not on his ability, and the type of player we know he can be and will be in the future. You just hate to lose that much experience, because we don't really have another, 4 or 5 years ago we had AJ McGinty, Craig Ronaldson, and Jack Carthy. Not to mention other players who could probably fit in at 10
Shane
if we needed them.
O'Leary, yeah, the year we
Shane
won, we
O'Leary.
had Shane O'Leary. Like Ronaldson was playing exclusively at centre that year, really. Like,
Yeah. I think like we've seen now through necessity that Tom Daly is a fantastic 10, and I think 2 weeks ago I don't think we had a second 10 on the bench. I think the idea was that if Jack goes down, Tom goes into cover. So no, I think Connor Fitz. I think he's been quickly forgotten. Like last season, he was big in the conversation of the young 10s coming through, and maybe through injury this year he's kind of fallen out of that conversation a little bit. But no, I expect to see him back later on in the season for sure.
Don't worry, Wesley. I haven't heard nothing about Jack.
So I'm rambling now because I'm panicking.
I hope you're sitting down. You are sitting down. So. We'll have to talk about Bundy, as you already mentioned. Twitter, I said Twitter, like social media was split sort of 50-50. People thought he was very good. Some people thought he wasn't very good. I think we all agreed he definitely wasn't up to the level that we expect from Bundy in years gone by. But there's no doubting when he's on the pitch, Connacht are better. And the intensity and the physicality he brings obviously gives away a penalty that gives Benetton the 3 points to go ahead, but then in typical Bundy fashion goes up, wins another penalty, and then mauls over for the try. The decision to go for the line out and try and win it obviously looks great now. At the time though, Sam, would you have been okay with kicking the 3 points for the draw?
I would have been okay with it, but I was shouting go for the corner. I had enough belief in our ability to maul over. I think that all we needed to do, and I'd been saying it all half, all we needed to do was one moment of us playing to our potential, us playing to our ability, and we were a better team, and that showed. The second we got it, the second we had the opportunity, it was capitalized on. Bundy was right there in the back of the maul, driving it on, doing what he does best, which is like spurring on the team and leading by example. So I believed in us. I wanted to go for the corner. I think at the time for me, the 4 points from the win was far, far more valuable in terms of like cementing second, cementing Champions Cup than the 2 points would have been, or 1 point or whatever. How does draws work in rugby? 2 points, yeah. It would have just been, it put just a bigger gap between us and then, subsequently Cardiff and the result there, and then like Scarlets going into that. I thought it was just more important, and I'm glad they did it. And the fact they did it again when they got the second penalty after it not working was great, getting the turnover and then doing it again and going to it, and just believing in himself. And that's the sort of thing that I was saying, having that belief to go on for 81 minutes or whatever it ended up being. Like that's a brilliant thing to have.
It's an interesting second half, because you could almost look at it as a defensive exercise. Like instead of rewatching the game, it's almost like anytime we get possession, we're happy to give it back to them and let them run at us, kind of quietly confident that we will get a score later on in the game, and then they get the penalty and we go, okay, now we have to get it. That's not a good game plan though, but
no, but
if you want to see it that way, if you really want to see it, you can kind of see it that way.
A lot of what you're saying, Smurf, when you were asking the question about Bundy, is I was obviously, he wasn't his massive explosive self that's going to catch the eyes of the Ireland selectors and get him picked, but what he's done the last 2 games is being part of a professional setup, being part of a structured backline. You have to also worry about the fact that him and Tom Daly are the only 2 fit senior centres there. Like Sean O'Brien is on the bench and he's a young lad. Like, we don't have much more to come in. So not being massively explosive, not taking it upon yourself to try and have the Roy the Rovers moment, might be conserving himself. He might have been kind of told by Andy Friend, just take it easy, do all the basics, be part of the team, because Andy Friend said it in the press conference 2-3 weeks ago. He said the reason Connacht's downfall when we're playing against 14 men is because people start trying to do it themselves and the structure goes out the window. So I think that it's very important to commend the fact that that back line is playing, it's bringing in new players, it's bringing in the likes of Sullivan getting game time, Fitzy getting game time. Like these are important moments, and Bundy is a senior pro in that team. The most successful probably. Like he's the in the international setup. He's probably would be considered one of the captains or leaders in the team, and for him to go through it and to have the moment at the end that wins it, but also have a good few turnovers that if there was a decent ref on the pitch wouldn't have been pinged and they would have been huge moments. I think that's really, really impressive. And like, obviously I love watching Bundy like give a big show and go hand off and run half the pitch, but if he's been told to conserve his energy and he's been told to work as part of a system for the benefit of the team and he's doing that, that's brilliant. Because any player, the likes of Marmion or Carty when he's playing, or Aki in that position, Heffernan when he comes on to land, who are close to the Irish team, could be selfish, and you couldn't blame them for trying to catch the eye, because in the moment there doesn't seem to be anything Connacht players can do to catch the eye.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair. But it was a great win. Great to snatch it at the end like that. And, that all counts as momentum going forward to that Munster game this Friday. We move on to Ulster versus Ospreys. Again, sloppy performance by Ulster, but yet another win. Doing what they need to do. And Ospreys looked better side that first half. But as we see, Ulster will punish your mistakes. We saw that at the end of the half. Ball goes loose. Nick Timoney showing clean pair of heels. I know he was up against another forward, but still impressive. And then does the smart thing, gives it off to Cooney, who's definitely quick. John Andrews scored a second try for Ulster. And Westy, I want to throw this question to you. This could be the most important question I've asked this podcast. Who has better hair, John Andrew or Kevin O'Byrne?
Oh, man. I don't think I could. They're almost like twins. I think I could differentiate between them.
You're the hair aficionado on this panel.
I'm the hair aficionado. I'm going to give it to John Andrew because when he gets over that line, there's a great flop, and that's a sign of a great. When he hits the ground, but his hair is still in the air, that's the sign of great rugby hair.
That's great. This is the kind of analysis you don't get anywhere else.
Nope.
No, but Sam, Ulster, again, not the best performance, but they're doing enough to win every week.
Yeah, and they're winning ugly, and that's commendable. I think they're really pushing Leinster. I think if this season goes the way it's been touted to be a one-off final between the top of the Conference A and Conference B, I think Ulster will feel very kind of aggrieved, because I think they've really pushed Leinster, and it's just unfortunate they happen to be in the same conference as Leinster, because if they were in our conference, they'd be winning it by far. They're a good few points ahead of where Munster are now. So I think that is just, it's the mark of a good team that they can win ugly. They have players there that will, like, Cooney, capitalize on these opportunities to score tries and, getting their conversions and tick the clock over, even if it's not going too well. They have a couple of disallowed tries as well. Like, the same with the Irish Shins. If one or two of them had counted, it might have looked a bit nicer. But no, they weren't overly impressive in their gameplay. But, another good result again like this. They've developed into a really, really good outfit with huge strength and depth. I think that's the most impressive thing. If you had said to me 2 years ago that Ulster would have the strength and depth that they have now, I would have laughed at you. But they've mixed signings and bringing through young players and like local players and stuff so well. They've all ingratiated into a good society, like into a good community and having a good team. The likes of Balakoon as well coming back is always good. Stockdale looked very sharp, which he hasn't in the past couple of years, maybe year or two. He really kind of looking a bit stronger, fitter, smarter maybe. So that can only be good for Ireland and Ulster.
Yeah, I think this is what we wanted for Stockdale, wasn't it, Westy? We said go back to your province, take some time off, even could do you good, and he seems to be benefiting from that now, doesn't he?
Yeah, definitely. And I like, with respect to Stockdale, I hope it stays that way. I mean, I think it was a really exciting mix in the back line for Ulster. I said Stockdale started, and then you had Rob Little, who I was a big fan of at the start of the season. I thought he was going to go very far. Now I think he was injured for a couple of weeks. We've been talking a lot about Mike Lowry the last few weeks. Very, very impressive. And then Robert Balakoon as well. So I think they've done the right thing by kind of slowly introducing Stockdale, give him a half a rugby to play and take him off. I don't think it was a forced substitution, but I could be wrong. But yeah, great. Like, I'm really excited to see him start now against Leinster next week and see what he can do there.
Definitely. And I think that game this weekend should be a cracker. I think we all think, Ulster can put up the Leinster and possibly beat them. We'll see. Munster and Leinster games, lads, we'll kind of rush through them a bit because I want to get everything covered. But the Munster game, obviously, the story point is the return of Joey Carberry. He came on, he kicked a nice, score. Looked, obviously still plenty of time to come back, and he's been off for a long time. But Sam, just how important is it for Munster and hopefully in the long term Ireland to have Joey Carberry back?
Yeah, it's brilliant. I think, when he moved to Munster, it was a massive signing for a lot of reasons. It was a massive signing for his career, for Ireland, for Munster to have that, Irish standard, international standard out half coming in there. Maybe could potentially be like a full back, a second playmaker as well. And then he was just so unlucky with the injury, you know. But he's still very young. He's still like got a lot of career ahead of him. So for him to come back and I was impressed with him. Like first game back in however long was it, 14 months, you know, over a year. For him to come back and one or two passes were very nice, good kick down the line, and then you know the conversion, like that's just only going to be brilliant for Munster. I really hope that next Friday he's not on that form and that we see a little bit of rust maybe. But no, from an Irish point of view, he might be, you know, the answer to the out half question that's been kind of on everyone's lips for the last while, and he might be the player that has been said. It's been said about him his entire career that he was there to usurp Sexton at Leinster and then at Ireland, and you know that's still plenty of time to do that. So it's a great thing for Munster to have, and I'd say the likes of like Diolande and stuff, you know, without being really harsh to JJ Hanrahan, I'd say they're looking inside them with the Carberry going, yeah, now I can work with this. Like that's it. So that's exciting opportunity for Munster, an exciting time. It's good to see him back, and I don't know. I've grown kind of a bit of a disdain towards Cardiff, so it's nice to see them lose as well.
The pitch looks so good, though. I keep saying
know,
it looks so good.
But I don't know if you follow Connacht as long as the Westie, like the Cardiff have just broken our hearts too many times. It's just I don't like them. I don't like their fans after games. They're more abusive than I am, so it's not nice.
Taste of Joe medicine. Westie, the announcement today, obviously Billy Holland has announced he will retire at the end of the season. Just I know we touched a bit last week, actually, just an incredible career, but let's touch on it again. Just kind of what have you met of his career? You know, obviously he never achieved anything. But never achieved. He never achieved anything.
Shots fired at Billy Holland. That was such a heartfelt announcement of retirement.
I meant to say never achieved, like internationally, probably what his potential was, but will go down as a Munster legend, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. And look, he was probably a little bit unlucky in the international level. You know, he just came along at a time where, you know, Devin Toner was starting a ridiculous amount of games. No, Big Dev fan.
When it comes to Connacht, Big Dev.
No, I just mean he came at a time when the Irish second row wasn't really being rotated. You know, he didn't really get too many opportunities. Again, I can't tell you how many Ireland camps he was in. I think it's only the one cap that he got. But I said last week, I spoke on kind of the value of these kind of, I don't want to say one club men, but like that kind of stationary, that kind of like your club captain, your lad who's there week in, week out, maybe not necessarily getting the international cost, but how valuable Billy Holland has been in the development of so many other players. Like I guarantee you talk to Finian Michelin, you talk to John Klein, you talk to even Craig Casey coming through, like the presence of somebody like that in a squad, the presence of all that experience with Munster and his ability to change up as well. Like it's not like he's been playing the same way with Munster for 10 years and getting his money. You know, he's adapted to new players coming in. He's adapted to everything that was asked of him. And I think just because it's not lured with international plaudits doesn't mean it's not an outstanding career for a player to have.
Yeah, no shots intended there, Billy. I just didn't finish my sentence is all that happened. Enjoy retirement, obviously, Billy, and off the field, obviously we all know what he achieved, which was incredible too. So an absolute servant to Munster, and the last game he plays, I'll definitely be tuning into that. Leinster Glasgow, we'll touch on this as well. Hot topic talking point from this was the Adam Hastings red card. I watched it back today. I don't really know what the topic is. You can't kick someone in the face. That should be obvious, but it's getting it's 50-50 again. Like, Sam, that's a red card, right?
Yeah, it's a red all day. I think you have, like, you know, much as a player has a duty of care to the player in the air, the player in the air has a duty of care to those around him as well. Like, it's not a free-for-all. You're not allowed to start swinging. You're not allowed to whip out knives if you're in the air. Like, there has to be rules about it. It's unfortunate he lost his footing, but his leg was in such a manner that he lost his footing probably to do with that. It's something that goalkeepers used to be taught back in the day in soccer, which was get the knee up so that no one will run in and barge you in the air because they'll never do it again, sort of thing. And that's the way he looked like he was catching it. It was an unnatural sort of movement and position. And yeah, he's unfortunate. It caught the face of the player. It caught the face of Cian Keller. It caught, and that's unfortunate. But that happens. You can't kick someone in the head accidentally on the ground and get away with it either. So I think that it was more than warranted. Although weirdly, it actually was kind of the making of Glasgow, made them look much better. They really got into it until they went down to 13 men, and then they got hockeyed again. But
I like that they were like, we're playing better with 14. Imagine how good we can play with 13. I like that logic. I like it. Westy, Scott Penny now has scored more tries for Leinster than Jordan Larmour. He is looking like a real prospect, a proper player. As we've already mentioned, we already have a lot of incredibly good back rows. Should he be kind of brought in ahead of those, or is it still time for him to kind of play at Leinster and keep developing?
I think there's still time. I think Leinster's pack just work as such a good unit. We've seen them barrel over so many tries this year, and Scott Penny is a phenomenal talent. As you said, it's a case of working things out. You know, how do we best utilize the talent that we have at back row? I don't particularly think, and I'm not saying the selection is right or wrong every week, but I don't think that's an area that we're struggling with at Ireland, especially now that, you know, our line out seems to have been a lot better sorted, and our scrum has always been really sturdy. You know, our back rows get through an immense amount of work. CJ Stander, we spoke earlier about how good Will Connors was in the game. I just think, again, he's unfortunate that he's in a position that's full of wealth. Again, it'd be nice to see him brought in, kind of like Coombs was for a camp for a little while, and maybe get a chance. But yeah, it's just, I mean, again, this is why I don't like Tyke Byrne in the back row. I think we have an opportunity to have him in the second row and open up a spot there. But, you know, I mean, Henderson and Ryan are fantastic players as well. It's
a summer tour would be ideal for Scott Penny, wouldn't it?
Yeah, look, if the Lions had gone ahead this year and we had like although if the Lions goes ahead this year now, I don't know how many players are actually going to get in there. But
yeah, it could be 0 at this stage.
Yeah. But I would argue that a summer tour is too early for Scott Penny, not because I don't think he's good enough, but he's 21 and playing in the back row. Like, he's got 20-something caps for Leinster now. Get him another 50 or 60 caps. Get him another 2 or 3 years. Let him physically develop into the player he's going to be. Like, you talk about 22, 23-year-olds, they're still not the same size or strength that they're going to be as 25, 26-year-olds. And then you have the opportunity, if you get them to 25 and then he gets into an Ireland camp, he's got so much experience playing week in, week out, and really honing his skills and developing, getting a good rapport and a massive amount of experience at a high level. Like, Leinster are going to be playing at a high level for that 4 or 5 years or whatever it is. Then you bring him in as a 25-year-old. He still has a potential 6, 7, 8-year international career, but he's really honed his skills. I think bringing him into an Irish squad, and you've seen it with a couple of these kind of fringe players, they're not getting either game. They're not getting any game. They're fringe players for Ireland, then fringe players for their club because they're away with Ireland. Whereas, like, he's 21. There's no rush with him. We have a wealth of back rows. There's so many back rows not even in the Ireland squad that he doesn't, I don't think, leapfrog yet. Let him improve his ability and keep going and keep improving the way he is, and it's just going to be beneficial in the long run.
Yep, that's fair enough. Move down, Southern Hemisphere boys, Super Rugby Aotearoa is back, and it just, watching these games back, it just reminds me of how different the rugby is to some of these Pro 14 games. Highlanders kicked it off playing the Crusaders. Irishman Jack Regan was playing for the Highlanders. Gets involved with Joe Moody early, to say the least. I would have thought that would have been at least a yellow card. I know it's open palm, but that doesn't mean I can go around and start open palming people for no reason. I know Jack Regan does pull him a bit, but Westy, what did you think of that incident?
Yeah, I think, I think you could see it go a different way on a different day and a different ref. I do think maybe the refs in Super Rugby are being encouraged to let the game flow on a bit more.
And we thank them for it.
Yeah, and reduce the number of cards that they give out. I don't know. I know the Australians do have it. Do the Super Rugby Aotearoa have the 20-minute red card rule as well?
Yeah, they had it last year, as far as I'm aware, but it wasn't used.
So yeah, I think they're probably just under the directive that they should probably let the game go as much as possible. And look, it was a pretty entertaining game. I really enjoyed it.
Jack Regan did the haka, Sam. If you were doing the haka, would you go full out, tongue out, like, proper into it? Or Jack Regan seemed to hold back a little bit?
I think you'd hold back a little bit just for fear of, like, looking like the token white guy. But I think that, you do have to give it the respect it deserves. You have to appreciate the position you're in. Not many non-New Zealand natives have been in Hackers, have been allowed to be in Hackers, had the opportunity to be in Hackers. It's not particularly a huge thing in club rugby. So it's I think you're in a privileged position. You're part of like an opportunity there, and you pay it the respect it deserves. And I think he did that. I think he did it well. And just like it's good to see, but like he's a big Offaly head on him, like from anywhere there. Like he's no Aaron Smith. Like
if someone didn't know who Jack Regan was, and you said spot the Irish lad in that team, you'd spot him straight away, wouldn't you? He's that kind of player. But I've been waiting to say the next thing for months now, and I can't. It brings me great joy to say it. Wesley's best friend, Shannon Frizzell, scored a try. Yeah, we're back. We're back. Westy, tell us that story again.
I was once. I'll tell. Let me paint the scene for you. It's my last day in Tokyo, right? Last day in Japan, right? I misread my ticket from my flight, so I head to the airport for my 9 a.m. flight back to Dublin. Lo and behold, my flight is actually at 9 o'clock at night, so I have a whole day to kill. I thought, who am I going to call? My good friend Shannon.
Big Frizz.
Big Frizz. So I headed to the city centre. I was like, oh look, I'll just potter around. I'll kind of find some stuff to do. Go down to Shibuya, do the Shibuya crossing, and I go up to a Starbucks, and who do I see sitting across the room but a young Shannon Frizzell? We have a deep conversation about their upcoming game against Ireland. I like to think that I was part of Ireland's demise in the end. You know, I really gave him some wise words.
Gave away all the secrets.
I embarrassingly went up to him and said, "Oh, hey mate, how are you? Like, good luck at the weekend. Get a photo." And that was it.
To the long time listeners of this podcast, that won't be a new story, but to the new listeners, that will be, and get used to it, that will be a running joke over this Super Rugby Aotearoa. And the next thing will also be probably a running thing over Super Rugby Aotearoa. Crusaders didn't look great for the first 60 and then pulled away for the last 20.
Even the commentators said it. They were like, oh, now they're going to turn it on. And I was like, oh, fuck.
But Sam, Highlanders looked pretty good in patches too. Like, this was a good game.
Yeah, it was a brilliant game. Really, like, I think the two games, the scoreline doesn't really do them justice. I think this was a lot closer than 26-13. I think.
Oh, you would say that, Hurricanes boy.
Definitely getting onto that, but no, I think that this should have been a one-score game. I think it was very close. I think that Highlanders looked brilliant, and I think like Aaron Smith was just so influential in like getting the ball right on the line and really causing a bit of distress. You know, massively impressed with both teams. But Sevu Reese, I cry every time I watch him play. He could be in the sports ground freezing his bollocks off if he had, you know, not done what he did. But that's a story for another day. It's great to watch really free-flowing rugby like that. It's like it comes out the traps the way it did, and it's brilliant. And I think that Highlanders look dangerous. I think that they'll definitely, like, I think this, like, the Highlanders, Crusaders, Blues, probably the top three pushing for it. Hurricanes, if they can play to their potential, be pushing for it, and then Chiefs probably be a laughing stock again. But sure, we'll leave that out.
This weekend,
Japan International Kazuki Himino starting for Highlanders this weekend. Hopefully
that would be huge. And Jack Regan made team of the week for a bit. Jack Regan. We'll want to touch on. I was going to touch on something else as well. Oh yeah, thanks to Sanzar Rugby for putting in a copyright strike on my Instagram post. Appreciate you, lads. Got it tucked down. So not a good start in my good books, but we'll move on. Hurricanes Blues was the Saturday game. Sam, you took a big fat L. The Blues boys did it. My boy Blue. Westy, what did you think of this game?
I thought it was a fantastic game, to be honest. I really enjoyed it. I wasn't going to get up for it, and then I was on call at work. I got called at 5:30, and I figured I'm up anyway. I might as well stick it on. But no, I think it was a brilliant game. And like Sam is right, the scoreline really doesn't reflect the result at all, because up until the last 10 minutes, it really could have gone either way. I thought the Aotearoa Black was fantastic. I was worried about, again, because look, I'm not going to lie, I didn't overly follow the Blues before last year. I was worried how they were going to be without Bowden Barrett. But I think you can definitely still see the kind of benefits of him there. Aotearoa Black's really grown to a fantastic 10. Dalton Papali'i was fantastic.
My boy Dalton.
Patrick Tuipulotu. I mean, I love the guy.
What a man. What a man. Sam, What went wrong? What a terrible performance by the Hurricanes. Should be kicked out of Super Rugby
Drop
Aotearoa.
Aotearoa, useless.
Oh, 100 caps my ass.
That's wrong. That's
wrong. It's
wrong thing
also
to
Just trying to gaslight him.
it's just also untrue. But go on, Sam, talk us through
But,
the Hurricanes.
No, I think Blues were fortunate and they capitalized on a couple of mistakes to really drive the scoreline home. I think that they scored early off a mistake and capitalized on that, and then after that it was an absolute slobber knocker of a game. I thought Amua hooker was just unbelievable. He was almost unplayable at parts.
He's my new favorite player.
Yeah,
how did New Zealand keep producing these hookers who are just like
athletic,
lightning? Yeah. What's going on? You've got Cody Taylor, you've Dan Coles, now this fucker as well. It's not fair.
Oh, but no, I thought the game was brilliant. I thought a lot of Blues players were very good. Terry Black was really good. Garden Bishop was class. His younger brother for Highlanders was also class. It's like these siblings just keep coming around New Zealand. And another siblings are Artie, and great to see Julian Save back on. I think Peter O'Maga Jensen just had a child the other day. That's probably why he wasn't starting, but he came on. I thought he was better than Proctor when he came on, really. But no, on the whole, I thought I was very impressed. Should have definitely been a one-score game. Could have gone either way, really. Blues capitalized on some very open play, desperation play, of the Hurricanes trying to get back into it towards the end there. But I just love Super Rugby Aotearoa. It's an enjoyable tournament to watch. It's such an enjoyable spectacle. The ability, the rugby ability. Some of these players will never be All Black. Some of these players will get less than 10 All Black caps. But I guarantee you, any one of the 30 people that started yesterday would be a Pro 14 starter instantly. Probably play on any of the Six Nations teams, be that in the 23 or in the extended squad. There's just such a wealth of talent in every single team in Super Rugby Aotearoa.
Yeah, the standard of play and the style of play is just incredible to watch. It's never boring. There's no boring games.
Massive shout out to Duplessis Karifi, who last season, if you listen to this podcast, when we were reviewing every week, I was like, I'm so impressed. This is such a good, strong, aggressive young back row. Came on, I was licking my lips. I was like, here we go. First thing he did, massively late hit on from half. Second thing he did, yellow card.
That's what you want. Impact player.
Exactly
Impact player.
He was called up into the All Black squad last year, brought over to Australia, and never got his game. But he's hugely highly rated. He was an absolute stud in the Mitre 10, and he's got such a career ahead of him. He's still so young, but he's so strong, he's so quick, he's so aggressive. I love watching him play. So you've Artie's Savea, Fafita, Flanders, and him. That's what a wealth of talent in the back row. I take that back row over Ireland's back row any day.
Would they be better than Scott Penny though? That is the question. No, I'm joking, of course, but there was almost as many offloads in these games as the Irish game because offload city. But this weekend the Chiefs are back, boys. Will they win a game this year? Westy, predictions.
They will win because they don't have that brick Warren Gatland pulling them down anymore.
Oh, controversial. Hashtag Gatland Irish back, baby.
He's gone. He's not there. He was at the Wales game.
But he's still employed by them, right? He's still on the books.
He's definitely getting 2 paychecks, all right.
Yeah, he's definitely getting they play the Highlanders, which the Highlanders, as I said, look really good. Then Sunday, Sam, Crusaders, Hurricanes.
Oh, yes.
How are you feeling?
Good, confident. Said it last year as well. Said before every game any team I've ever supported play, and it's yet to backfire. So
yet to backfire. I think we need to fact check that at some stage. But all right, this has been a long podcast. Everyone listening, we apologize, but we did have a lot of games to get through. Next week will be Pro 14 and some Super Rugby Aotearoa, so it'll be a bit shorter, shall we say? But thank you for tuning in. Thank you for sticking with us, boys. Appreciate it as always, and we'll catch you next week.
See you later.
See you, boys.